Jedi Master what? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I never got that. Well,
we've watched the first episode of The Bad Batch. Tim has a Disney Plus account. I, as you know, do not. But he was insistent, since I was a fan of the Clone Wars, that we watch this show.
yeah, this week was May the 4th, as everybody knows, and we wanted to try something different. So we have actually got a test episode already up on Patreon, and that episode is picking on Picard. So we are picking up where we left off, and I talked Michael into actually trying something new this week, and we did The Bad Batch.
Which goes not against my principles about Disney Plus, because it's not my account. And, Tim feeds the beast a little bit.
Well, I prepaid. I prepaid
Right.
for 3 years at the time when Disney Plus was first coming out, so I've got another 2 years left before I have to worry.
Right. And because of this Clone Wars connection, Tim was the one that got me to watch the Clone Wars. We decided, let's start with this since it's just come out and people are talking about it.
Omega from earlier?
I was in Lord of the Rings with Peter Jackson.
Yeah, kid, we remember. Don't you have...
Probably he also wanted me to talk about this because he knows that I'm a little bit more immediately familiar with the Clone Wars story than I was the situation with Trek. Although I did watch Trek growing up.
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
So.
And Clone Wars, when I first met Michael, that was one of the first things we talked about.
Yeah.
Is that I, probably more than anything, Clone Wars is more, I would say, my Star Wars. I fell in love with it. My kids were the right age. We watched it on Saturday mornings together. I fell in love with all the different variety of stories I got through those seasons. And lo and behold, Disney buys it and cancels it immediately without any reason or rhyme or any closure to half a dozen storylines that were going at the time.
Well done, Disney.
They
well
love
done.
They love to do that.
Yeah.
So. But what do you think? I mean, do we want to talk a little bit about structure, creativity before we get into spoilers, so everybody can have a chance to go, oh no, I can't watch this?
I think, let's talk a little bit about structure and about production. We'll warn you when we're going into the spoiler section, so just be ready for that. But we will warn you. I hate the word spoilers. I hate the fact that it's coming out of my mouth. I think everybody needs to, tighten their belt on this kind of stuff and get tougher. But I can't control the internet's wussiness. So
The value of all clone troopers is being challenged by the Empire.
you will now compete in this game of Quasar.
Combat proficiency test.
You are the red laser team.
Take your position. We've done these a
I never
thousand
looked at it
times.
that way. Yes, absolutely.
You know what to do.
First of all, I got to ask your thoughts on why. And I don't mean that to say that I feel like this is a completely unnecessary show. What I'm trying to get at is why, after all of the stuff that Disney did to cancel the prequel era, the Clone Wars show, and move on into this new post-Return of the Jedi world that they did with the sequel trilogy and Star Wars Resistance and all this kind of stuff, why do you think they decided to greenlight this show?
Well, I think this is number one, there's so many things that the Clone Wars, so many stories that the Clone Wars told outside of what we called that canon timeline. So I think this was really a passion project for Filoni. I think he's proven success time and time again. Right after the cancellation of Clone Wars, Filoni and them kind of were left hanging. They really weren't told anything, and Disney kind of took this attitude of, we can do it ourselves. We can do what they did. The Clone Wars were successful. We can do it ourselves. We're going to do this show called Rebels. And we got season 1 of Rebels that Disney did, and it was awful.
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible storytelling. They put children in it with little slingshots. They had these Inquisitors with these spinning double-bladed lightsabers that were apparently apprentices of Vader. Just really bad storytelling, and the series flopped really, really fast, and there was a lot of articles, and I think you remember, I said to you in a conversation, I predicted, I said, they're going to have to bring Filoni in to fix this mess.
Yeah.
Before they ever did.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
And then it was great to see that they finally took that step. They brought Filoni back in, and the first thing he did was kill the Inquisitors. We never heard them again. We never saw them again. He made Ezra older. He made him kind of a teenager, 15, 16 years, to be a real apprentice.
Right.
Not a 9-year-old or 8-year-old child. He got rid of the slingshot and brought back real blasters and things. So he brought back just enough for it to go, hey, there's a Star Wars fan base that is adult that wants to watch Star Wars, but there's still enough left in there that kids can still enjoy it.
Right.
And he found that balance with Rebels. And I think with that success, he's going, hey, the sequels, I think he's scared of them. I think he thinks they're a mess, secretly. He may not say it publicly, but I just think he does. But he's still got that safe space of, we know a lot of what happened post into the Clone Wars, pre-Rebellion, so he's able to play in that field kind of safely, if that makes sense.
I just wonder why Disney would agree to it, given that they gave him such a hard time just trying to get the Clone Wars finished with the final season.
I mean, that's a great question.
Are they eating crow? Like, do you think they're realizing?
I mean, they may be. I think they've never had the backlash they've ever had until they bought this property.
Right.
Disney was, me and you never cared that much for Disney from an organizational standpoint.
Right, yeah.
But we still bought their stuff and watched their movies.
Right.
It wasn't until they bought Star Wars from Lucas and really trashed it. I mean, that they started seeing the amount of backlash that they had. So I think to your point, I think they're trying to backpedal a little bit and go, yeah, maybe we don't know what we're doing 100%. Maybe we need to bring in some talent that actually does. And maybe they're trying to do it now, not just with The Bad Batch, but with Mandalorian. And
was The Bad Batch something that was always planned for, or did he come up with this more recently and say, oh, there's an opportunity here? What are your instincts about that?
I think it's more recent. I think it's more recent because, although, you're making me think, because if you go back to the Clone Wars in season 4, keep me honest, where they go back to Camino, and they have that invasion of Camino happen where Ventress and all them are there, and you actually see Clone 99.
Right.
And if you remember, he was decrepit and he looked like an old man. He was a genetic mistake.
Right.
But he ended up saving the day, sacrificing his own life for his brothers, which they gave him a place of honor, which now you've got these clones who are also considered genetic mistakes in the cloning process, but they take his name and honor for their squad name as Squad 99.
Yeah.
So could it be something? Maybe that story just inspired him. I don't know.
Now, for those of you who are sort of familiar with this Bad Batch concept, I'm going to give you the premise, not the plot, not the spoilers, just the premise statement so that we can kind of tackle that before we go into the section about the details. So the Bad Batch is what it sounds like. It is a bad batch of clones from Camino who are genetically deficient in some way. They didn't come out of the hopper 100%. And they've been fighting the battle against the Trade Federation for several years now. So they're still soldiers, but they're not conventional soldiers. And that's kind of the premise of where this launches from. It still launches in the prequel era, sort of the Revenge of the Sith timeline. When you heard this premise the first time, when you heard about it, because you're such a huge Clone Wars fan, Attack of the Clones fan, what did you think? Like, did you like the idea? Were you ambivalent?
I think I was very ambivalent at first because when the last season finally came out last year, the first 3 or 4 episodes was Bad Batch. But it was with Anakin, with Obi-Wan, and they were going to rescue Echo, who we thought died in the previous season. But turns out they saved the Separatist saved his life and turned him into a human cyborg kind of pre-Vader kind of thing.
Hunter.
please take this Kylie Minogue album with you when you go, and remember me.
I just noticed something.
What?
In all their eyes, there's a round reflection, but there's no round lights anymore.
Yeah, but it's because people have gotten used to that. So, because of lighting in real situations, I'll bet, and so they're like, oh, it creates life in the eyes.
So yeah, I mean, I think the premise was interesting because we have all these storylines about clones, and I think what you saw the fans respond to in the Clone Wars was you finally started to see the clones as individuals.
Right.
You saw Rex, you saw Echo, you saw Heavy, you saw Fives. So you kind of started to get this sense that, oh, the clones are separate and unique. They kind of have their own personality. So I think that spawned this really big following, especially for Rex. I mean, you now have some of the most coveted figures and characters of Star Wars these days coming from the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So I think that was pretty interesting. So yeah, I did like the premise of that. So let me ask you one quick question. So what do you think of production value as far as animation and stylization comparatively now that there's been some time between Clone Wars and Bad Batch? What do you think cinematically?
Well, I know that the final season wasn't that long ago, which apparently had some differences to the main Clone Wars show because for all of their Imagineers, they can't seem to replicate, their technology from production to production. Well done, Imagineers. Well done. I didn't have a problem with the animation overall. Felt very much like the old show, except for the fact that I feel like there is this wooden puppet texturing that's on the faces far more than there was originally. I don't recall that much wood grain. I mean, that's literally what it is. It looks like wood grain on their faces. I literally don't remember that from the original show. I remember them looking very chiseled as characters, like almost like Thunderbirds puppets or something, but I do not for 1 minute remember them having literal wood grain on their faces, and these characters all do. And
it's very interesting. I'm with you. I don't think I noticed it until you pointed it out to me, and I got thinking. But one of the interesting things I found was the background is way better now. Before, if you remember in the Clone Wars, you could tell it was almost a matte painting in the background, and they did that on purpose. It was a style choice. I love it for what it is. But now it's not like that. When they were sliding down that snowy hill, the look of the trees and the way it moved, I felt like the actual environment is much better. But to your point, the way the characters look is very different.
Yeah, it's strange. And like just certain details jumped out at me, like the way they decided to color certain armor pauldrons on some of the clone troopers, not even the Bad Batch guys, but just some of the standard regs, as they called them. When they would get close to the camera, it looked like they were going for this look that said this was scrubbed on with a Sharpie or like a marker or like a cheap paintbrush or something. And I'm going, why would they do that? Like that, it seemed very strange to me aesthetically, given how the troopers, the Empire in Star Wars are always supposed to be. And again, this is not limited to the Bad Batch characters. All of the troopers, they didn't look like that when they had colored pauldron stuff. Yeah, it was battle worn.
Yes.
But when you got close to it, it didn't look like it had just been sprayed on with a Krylon can or something. Like it. This looked like somebody dunked a brush in and just went da, 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 da. And it was a deliberate look, but I'm not sure why they did that, because it certainly didn't look regimental.
No, that's great. That's a good point. I agree with you. I think they started out with just that battle worn look, but now it's almost like it's a deliberate thing.
Yeah.
So it is weird.
I'm like, bombers in World War II didn't look this sloppy. Like, and they didn't even have the paint technology we have now. Like
very true.
I wasn't sure why they did that. I didn't have a problem with the Bad Batch looking like that, because they're supposed to be this unconventional, we do things our way, dirty dozen kind of thing. And yeah, they would have been battle worn and weathered, and then they would have painted back over some of the cosmetic damage over and over again. They would have stealthed out their suits a few times, then the paint fades, and then I got all that. Like, that was fine for those 5 guys. I had no problem with that. It was the other dudes.
The regulars?
The regulars. It was the regulars, like with the red stuff. And I'm going, the Hasbro Legends action figure they just announced does not look like this.
Right,
like,
right.
He looks like he's got the properly painted shoulder pads, or wherever he's got stripes. They're, you know,
especially since these were supposed to be like the elite guard from Coruscant.
Yeah.
You know, you would think they would be in ship shape.
Yeah,
right? You know.
yeah. It would be like if you saw an Emperor's Royal Guard from Return of the Jedi and you looked at the hem of his robe and it was like cut with scissors. You're like, what? Like,
well, we could, now that you say that.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but yeah, it was odd. I didn't have a problem with the animation fluidity. Didn't have a problem with any of the effects. None of that. It was just that one pervasive aesthetic choice.
That facial.
That veneer, as they would say on Antiques Roadshow, that they put over the whole show. And I'm going...
It is an interesting style choice,
Yeah.
though. I'm sure we'll hear something as time goes by. That we'll figure out something.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Is that texturing on their face? Is that a new thing?
That's what everybody's, I think, complaining about.
I mean, because it makes them all look like wooden puppets. I guess we're getting into spoiler territory now, since there's only so much you can talk about. As you guys know, I don't believe in doing a no spoiler review, because if you say you're doing a no spoiler review, you're not saying anything at all. You've got to talk about the story. So we're going to give a few of you guys a few seconds to get out of here while I ramble the disclaimer. But if you haven't seen it, get away now and come back afterward. So yeah, the plot of The Bad Batch is, keep me honest, the Bad Batch is fighting some of the last battles of the war with the Trade Federation. They're on a planet. They are with a Jedi and Padawan, as the prequels showed us in that movie. All the troops were being led by different Jedi. And this particular Jedi's name is Diana blah, blah, blah. And something like that.
Still love those walkers better than the other ones.
Jedi Master Deborah blah, blah, blah. And her apprentice, David yada, yada, yada.
Beba or Bebe or something like that. I can't.
Those clones served alongside General Balaba for years. How could they turn on her like that? Because of
Blah, blah, blah.
programming.
It's apparent that she was a temporary character.
Yeah.
And they didn't put a lot of thought into that name, I don't think.
It's like, my name is Dinar Burberber.
Well,
like,
and then watch, somebody's going to come, there's a whole book about this person. And I'll be
yeah.
like, I'm sorry.
yeah.
It seemed like they didn't put a lot of thought into this one. So.
Let's address that before we get any
Okay,
further.
all right.
You brought up the whole, there's a book about this, and that is a valid problem that's going on in fandom right now. Okay, so I just did that video about Kathleen Kennedy's Fire Hose of Fun.
Mm-hmm.
And in that video, we talked extensively about how when you throw away the extended universe and then say everything's going to be canon from here on out, you have just painted yourself into a corner.
Yes. Yeah.
Every franchise, up until Disney, Lucasfilm made that decision, every franchise consistently said Star Trek did this, Star Wars did this pre-Disney, Doctor Who does this. They all say the filmed entertainment, whether it's TV or movies, takes precedence over any other medium.
Yes.
Whether it's a audio drama, a comic book, a book, or a video game. All of those things, they defer because you can't keep that level of continuity straight. Like there's no way. And then on top of that, if a book or a comic book fumbles it, the live action or animated properties is the way to say, well, we defer that away. We deprioritize that because we're going to tell that story here.
Well, it makes sense because that medium doesn't have as many fans, or
Right.
then you got to worry about translations across countries and all that, so you don't get as wide an audience with those mediums as you do that video
Right.
solution, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I said at the time that they canceled the expanded universe, I said Disney is never going to be able to keep all this straight from here on out. They're never going to be. There will be mistakes, there will be problems, and now that you've told the fan base that everything is canon, you're in trouble. Because now the hardcore people have already read, 2012, so 9 years now of books, comics, they've played video games, and they're like, oh, well, this is the story. And it's like,
Well, they've never had a franchise like this.
Right.
Right? Disney has always kind of had the luxury of retelling fairy tales.
Right.
So there's an established story there, and they just animate it, tell it for the first time for little kids to hear, and they had success. That's what happened through the 80s. At least that's how I feel it happened from the 80s. Yeah, there's some unique things. Oliver and Company, Fox and the Hound. That's not a...
Yeah, it's Disney.
I'm talking about, I can't remember if there was a book or fairy tale on that or what, but yeah, they've had a few unique things they've done, but typically they're telling an already established story. Star Wars, to me, was the first time they bought a universe, and I don't think they were prepared for the depth and the width of what they were purchasing and what it was going to take to curate that successfully.
Right.
Not just to drive new audiences, but to curate and take care of existing audiences. So it's almost like they've been like, we don't care about the old people because they're aging out anyways. We only care about new things, but yet the Star Wars community is a ferociously loyal.
You're being even kind saying it that way.
No, I know, I get
Yeah.
it. We're gonna get ate up for this, right?
You know what? I don't care. I just don't care. I don't. It is folly to sit there and say we are going to hang a movie studio's continuity for a franchise on books, comics, and video games.
Yeah.
It is a mistake, and we are already seeing the problems that are stemming from that in this Bad Batch show, just based on the chatter online. Now, look, I didn't have a problem with the continuity of this particular television show because I'm not trying to say that I'm like more enlightened, but I've been in this game a lot longer than some of these fans. Like you and I go back all the way to the beginning.
Yep.
We've never sat back. We were trained to disregard comics, books, and video games when it butted up against. We were trained to in the Star Trek novels, in the Star Wars comics. Dude, 7 issues into the Star Wars Marvel series, we're talking 6 issues was the first movie adaptation. The 7th one, the very first original Marvel comic, had a green space rabbit in it with a red spacesuit on. All right?
Yeah.
So let's divest ourselves of this idea that a corporation can keep all these plates spinning and not make one crash.
Step on something.
Yeah, they're going to step on stuff. Therefore, anything in here that contradicts Disney's very forgettable Star Wars comics and books, I don't care. I don't care.
No, this is true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already in conflict with some of the stuff going on now.
Yeah.
you know, with Geode. So
Yeah. Like a rock. Oh, like a rock.
flying the vessel.
The vessel.
I love that shuttle though. I think it's cool shit.
Does it have a name?
I
Or is it
don't
just
think
called
so.
the shuttle?
They haven't referred to a name yet.
It's piloted by a log of wood.
Because I love the one thing about the Bad Batch equipment wise, because you know me, I'm a technical guy. I love their shuttle. I love their shuttle they have. It's a modified Imperial shuttle type shuttle with a much longer base, and that it's a great ship. I think it's cool.
The plot of the Bad Batch is they're in one of the last battles of the Separatist War, and they're with a Jedi and her Padawan. The Jedi's name is Diana blah blah blah, literally, or something like that.
The Padawan is Caleb. Yes, Caleb, who turns into Kanan for the Rebels. Yes,
Right, he's young Kanan. He's
Yes.
young Freddie Prinze Jr., although I think Freddie Prinze Jr., don't hold me to this, but it really sounds like he's still voicing the character at 10 years old, which is strange.
Yes, Master. This is
Spoiler alert, that's Kanan.
Hunter, Echo,
From
Tank,
Rebels.
and Crosshair.
Oh,
Well,
as a
I'm not
kid.
sure fun is
Why
the
does he have a
central
man
topic
voice?
stress. I
He doesn't have a
agree with
kid
my
voice.
You
Your
know,
Is that actually Freddie Prinze Jr. doing the voice?
I don't know. I haven't researched that. Yeah, he had a very deep voice for a young child.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it was a little... So they're fighting this battle. They've got to go after some more troops. Kanan, Caleb, brings in the Bad Batch to help reinforce a battle against some droid tanks. He could have just stepped to the left.
Yeah.
Then they beat the droid tanks, and then right at that moment, he goes running off with the Bad Batch to mop up or something like that. And that's when the order comes in from Emperor Palpatine.
Execute Order 66.
Right. And so the other regular troopers get the message. They kill Kanan's teacher, master, blah blah blah, and so then he turns around, sees that, realizes something's wrong. He runs away from the Bad Batch, who are not affected by Order 66, except for their sniper. And the head of the Bad Batch, whose name is Hunter tries to convince him that I'm not going to murder you. Kanan doesn't respond to that. Caleb, I keep calling him Kanan. Caleb doesn't respond to that. He's understandably distraught and distrustful at this point. And he allows himself to leap over a chasm, over a river. Well, that's right as everybody else comes running up, including the sniper who is trying to follow orders and kill all the Jedi. And Hunter lies to him and says that Caleb jumped into... I stunned him on his jump and he fell into the water and died. Well, of course, the sharpshooter is already suspicious of his story. They go back to Kamino and... they find out that Admiral Tarkin, not Grand Moff Tarkin yet, but Admiral Tarkin is there to inspect all the troops because now it's no longer a republic, it's an empire, and he's thinking about phasing out the clone troopers, which doesn't make the Kaminoans happy because they're now in breach of contract with the Kamino cloners. They don't care because they say we're an empire now, not a republic. So our contract's null and void, which that's thin, Riggs.
It is, but you know what's really interesting, and I'm going to speak from some personal experience. The scene where Palpatine's the hologram and he's doing the Episode 3 speech,
right?
And you see all the battalions of clones, just tens of thousands of clones sitting out in their courtyard or whatever. And, Emperor Palpatine's like, the first galactic empire for a safer and secure republic. And all of the clones are just like, yeah. And the Bad Batch is there by themselves looking around going, oh, man. Oh, man. When I was younger, well, I was pretty young. I was in my teens. I went to a meeting, and in this meeting, I'm a military brat, and in there, what they do is this is where they bring new recruits, and they do a presentation of why you're joining the military, and they simulate a torture situation and what people are going to go through, and they simulate a death scene. Now this is 30 plus years ago,
right?
So I'm sure it could be very different now. While I'm not a, very political person, you know me, I don't talk politics, I don't know what's going on half the time. I do remember sitting there seeing these new recruits just sitting there going, yeah, I'll give my life. And I remember just sitting by myself looking around going, wow, nobody's asking why you have to give your life. Nobody's asking why you need a safer, secure. So part of me is kind of going, that blind admiration, that blind loyalty, while it can be very, very good, it can also be very, very bad. And I think Filoni's showing us a situation of where it's not good.
Right. No, I totally got that part. Yeah. It was more of the idea that I don't think, even in a galaxy far, far away, I don't think that a purchase contract could be rendered null and void by... I don't think it could be rendered null and void by the party that hired you that then won the war. Regardless of what they change their name to, that would be like McDonald's hiring a bunch of contractors around the country to remodel their stores. And when they remodel them, they rename the stores McDowell's. And then at the very end of it, when they get done, McDonald's goes, well, now we're McDowell's, and it was McDonald's that contracted you for the work.
So we're just not going to pay you.
We're not going to pay you. And it's like, no, I don't.
Yeah, but you see for the first time, and I always hated that they position the and I can never say it, Kaminoans? I can never say that. I can never pronounce that. I'm sorry.
Kaminoans? I don't know.
Kaminoans, whatever. They always portrayed them as bad guys, and I always wanted them to be the good guys, but now you're seeing a spark. After that speech Tarkin gives, you kind of see them going, oh, wait a minute.
We didn't sign on for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to damage my clones and my facilities. And, you're seeing them actually care a little bit about the clones, whether it be just because they're their creations or what, I don't know. But I hope that fleshes itself out. That's all
I've said to you before in conversations, going back to our discussions on Attack of the Clones, these people, these Kaminoans, they've already been totally okay with finding out that their entire operation was being charged onto a dead Jedi's credit card. Stolen credit card, all right? You know this is true.
We don't know what form of Tinder was used.
They've spent 20 plus years not checking in with their buyer, and then suddenly
10 years.
It takes 10 years for a clone to become a 20 to 25-year-old soldier? Okay, fine. Anyway, Obi-Wan shows up, and he's like, hello there, what's going on? And they're like, we're building clones and growing them into soldiers for your Republic.
Order is almost ready.
Yeah, and he's like, the Jedi have not made an order. And he's like, Jedi Master Cypher Diaz. And he's like, he was killed almost 10 years ago. And it's like, that's a dead Jedi stolen credit card. Did you not know that? Like, maybe when you learn that, you should immediately just kind of put everything on hold. Maybe not throw any more embryos into the soup and just wait for a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have been like, we should probably work
But we don't know what amount of effort that took either. It could be just a simple push of a button. I mean, we don't know.
What do you mean?
What they had to do to make these clones. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what kind of effort it really took. I mean, this is supposed to be super advanced space, stuff. So it's thin rigs.
It's anorexic.
It's thin rigs.
Okay, so
I'll stop.
So I guess my point is that I like the fact that their wheels are turning, but they had ample opportunity when Obi-Wan came to visit them
and had no idea.
And then the model for
But remember, he pretended to understand. He was like, "Oh yes, of course, the army, yes."
Yeah, but I mean,
because you got your favorite line when he went in the rain.
They're using a bounty hunter named Jango Fett to create a clone army. No, Master, they don't appear to know what's going on. Really wet out here. Can I please go inside? Why is this not portable? Why can I not stand in the fire?
Obviously, everybody else can, but he has to go outside.
He has
to
to
make
go
the call.
outside in the rain.
I guess he's trying not to be secretly listened in on or what. Anyways, we can pick that movie part all day, unfortunately.
We should check and see what he's saying to the Jedi. I don't want to go out in the rain.
Even though I'm an aquatic creature.
And then Obi-Wan's sitting out there in the rain. He's like, my plan is genius. They don't want to get wet on an aquatic planet. Like, it's, okay, yeah. So
anyway, sorry, back to Bad Batch.
It's a Bad Batch. So Tarkin decides he wants to test these aberrant clones and find out how loyal to the Empire they really are. So first he puts them through a training regimen where he then tries to fire live rounds at them without their knowledge, and all they have are stun guns. So they use their ingenuity. You will fight these rejects from the movie WALL-E. They rig up some of those battle droids, those things. They kill all the other battle droids. So then he sends them on a mission. When he sends them on a mission to kill some separatist forces that have not surrendered, like, they get there and it's like old ladies, children, women, stuff like that, and they're like, oh.
And Saw Gerrera.
And Saw Gerrera, who keeps showing up. He keeps showing up like Tarkin in the Disney. Like, Disney has an obsession, Disney Lucasfilm, with Tarkin and Saw Gerrera.
You got my total support on this.
Yeah.
Where these two characters suddenly became the most important focal point.
It's ridiculous.
Why do you carry 4 ink pens? That's a lot of ink pens. Are they Uniball? I like Optiflow.
It's ridiculous. Like, I like Tarkin in context.
Well, I like the story, but Gerrera yet is another invention of the Clone Wars.
Right.
Now, again, spoilers here. I'm sure there's books and other material I'm not familiar with, but I wasn't exposed to Gerrera until the Clone Wars animated series.
Right.
So, I can't
really speak to...
But yet, here we go again. This animated series has produced some of the most well-loved characters now.
Right.
In Disney existence, or Star Wars Disney existence.
You mean Tarkin and Saw Gerrera?
And Ahsoka and Rex and all these characters came from the Clone Wars.
Well, Tarkin didn't.
Well, no, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of, you got literally 3 minutes of Tarkin in history and the regular canon, but then it's Clone Wars where you see Tarkin in like multiple episode story arcs.
Right.
And he's, can't even remember what his rank was in the Clone Wars, but he was much younger, right? He was a new commander.
Yeah, and he walks in the end of Revenge of the Sith and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I guess, so yeah, in the Clone Wars continuity of the animated show, Tarkin has been a presence. So I guess that's, all right. That's fair. So we get to the point where they decide, of course, we're not going to kill these innocent people. The sniper, of course, wants to kill them right away because he's totally loyal to all of his orders and he doesn't understand why his superior Hunter is not stepping in line. They realize that they've got to get back to Camino to find out why they were sent on this mission they were basically lied to.
And they're wanting to rescue now
Omega. Mega.
It's actually Omega.
Omega.
Her accent makes it sound Omega.
Diana, blah, blah, blah.
But here we have heavy Disney influence.
Yeah.
It's in your face obvious, right?
It is in your face obvious.
They have to have, to your point, a princess.
Yes.
And now they've created one that actually is a clone.
Which is ridiculous. Why would they create a clone and then modify its DNA to be female?
Well, and that's what we don't know. There's something to it, okay? There's something to it. We know that, we can tell. There's a story
There's
arc
something
there.
to it because Filoni's got to justify it, but I don't think he would have done this reflexively.
Disney doesn't know what to do unless it has a princess. They're paralyzed without one.
I think you're right.
I think Disney mandated you got to have
I think that's a fair point.
Okay.
I agree. Look, I'm the same one. As soon as I saw this character, if it came from the same genetic sample as the others, so Jango Fett, why would they make a female Jango?
Right.
Obviously, again, there's going to be a reason. We don't know what it is, but again, I think it's very obvious this is a Disney push.
Right.
You know.
So there's this little girl. Her name's Omega. She's a clone, and she really warms up to these Bad Batch guys because they're naturally like her, because they're not standard perfect clones. Yeah. And of course, she and the 4 clones that aren't loyal get thrown in the brig. Well, one of the clones is not actually genetically inferior. It's Echo. Echo from the Clone Wars show. And he's now got the Lobot thing on his head, and he's kind
missing an arm. He's got a thing.
He's got like an Inhumanoid suit thing. I'm Augur. But he's with them because he's now beat up and different. And they all have to escape because they realize that Tarkin has realized that the sharpshooter sniper guy is his boy. And so he augments his brain, like literally overloads it to make him super, super loyal and super psycho.
Crank up the bass and ratchet it up to 12. I want to rock out to this clone.
And now he's with Tarkin to try and kill the rest of his old comrades. And they have to escape with the little girl and get away from Camino.
Well, you don't know if he's actually the first Dark Trooper.
Right.
Because if you noticed in the end when he came in, he had the Dark Trooper. Or is it Dark Trooper or
Death Trooper?
Death Trooper.
Death Trooper.
He might be the first Death Trooper because he had that full black, and it wasn't shiny.
Right.
To your point, it was weirdly beat up for a new set of armor. Stylization, I guess, whatever.
So that wasn't his standard armor through the show?
No. If you read, and it took me because I've watched it multiple times because of my kids. But if you look, his armor's different. It's all black. There's no red anything on it anymore. He doesn't have the drawing on the helmet. So my son, the first thing he said, he goes, he's a Death Trooper. I wonder if he's the first Death Trooper because it would make sense to fall in that timeline.
Right.
So I don't know. So
I don't have a problem with the story as it's unfolded in the pilot episode, but for but for this Omega character that seems very shoehorned in. Because what are we going to find out? Is this going to be another chosen one? Is this going to be another child of destiny? It's like
This is where we've been burned so many times.
So many times.
That are we going to be burnt this time?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to find out? And this is where I'm knocking on wood, hoping Filoni is going, you know what, I'll do what you say, but we're going to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, meet us halfway. And this is that halfway mark, right? Let's hope that's what we're seeing. That we have this character, but Filoni's going to have... I find that Filoni has a strange way of just making stories work, at least in my opinion. I know a lot of you don't agree. I think he has a way of making things work.
I get that. My other issue, of course, is that there's like 50 different opportunities in this story to kill Tarkin.
Right.
And nobody takes the shot. Like, you're going... You guys have already figured out that there's something wrong, and Tarkin's literally standing in front of you with his hands behind his back. What would have stopped you guys from killing him right there? Like,
That's a great point. I'm with you. I don't disagree.
I know that they're soldiers and they don't want to kill their own. They're not Finn from The Force Awakens. They don't just say, I'm a pacifist. I'm going to kill all my old soldier friends. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Like, I get that, and I respect that. But at least I felt like Hunter and the other three guys that weren't
Echo, and I can't remember the others.
I felt like it took them too long to get there. Like, as seasoned combat soldiers, already having known that their fellow regulars had killed all the Jedi, even on a mission they were on, right? I would feel like once they got back to Kamino and Tarkin is showing up and declaring an empire and all this stuff, I was sitting there the whole time going, get there faster. You guys need to... Not the big guy, he's stupid, but the rest of them, it's like, get there faster.
Well, but if you think about historically, let's go back pre-World War II.
Uh-huh.
Is it a night of 1,000 blades or 1,000 knives?
Knives, yeah.
Don't you wish Germany had gotten there faster?
Oh, yeah, but...
but I mean, I'm just sitting here going... I think in that situation, you think about it, the clones are like, well, everything is sort of the same, but not really the same.
Well, they weren't happy when the Emperor's message declared an empire. They were the only ones not cheering.
Well, they weren't happy, but at the same time, they're kind of confused going, is it me? Am I the problem? And everybody else is right? Because anytime you find yourself fighting a group, much like we end up doing on Facebook every day, especially you, we find ourselves being attacked by the majority. We feel like the majority, right? We don't think it's the majority, but let's just say if you're one of 50 people and you say we need to go left and everybody else says we need to go right, you do second guess yourself. It's human nature to go, oh, well, I am the only one saying go left. Maybe it's me. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I do need to go right. So I'm kind of thinking of there was just enough confusion to drag it on just a little bit. I don't know, but I see your point of get there faster.
Like, I get
there faster.
Because I think the thing was we'd already, and again, I know this happens at the same time as Revenge of the Sith. It's parallel. It's running parallel with those events. But, we've already seen Bail Organa and Yoda and the entire Jedi Temple. None of them got there fast enough. And I'm going to put this out there. It's never going to change. This show is going to be what it is. And it's not bad. The show is very watchable. It's a continuation of Clone Wars. It's Clone Wars 3.0 is what it is.
Right.
But after everything we've seen the clones go through, everything in the last season with Ahsoka and Rex telling her to find fives, all that stuff, right? Because the clones with Ahsoka were already figuring out something was wrong. Fives knew something was wrong.
Yes.
The Bad Batch is different in a similar way. Echo is now different because of his trauma. I felt like it would have been a stronger choice if they had scripted it where this is the batch that figures things out a little faster with this whole thing.
I don't disagree.
Because right now they're just glitchy ground pounders that are on the run. And it's because they didn't get there fast enough.
Right.
And it's like, does anybody in the prequel universe get there fast enough?
I don't think they did.
I mean, like, even the Kaminoans don't get there fast enough. I mean, from the very beginning we've met them, they're like, So you're saying we have a dead Jedi's stolen credit card? Well, your order will be ready soon. Like it's like, oh my God.
No, I do not disagree with that whatsoever.
Everybody in the prequel universe is like, biscuit? Like they're all like, really? This is happening? Like it,
Well, I did too, and even though I love the movie, that was a big problem for me too.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I would immediately go, what the hell? I've spent billions of dollars here. What's going on?
Right.
So it ain't perfect.
yeah.
It ain't perfect.
I mean, it took. Let's go to my favorite movie in the saga. Let's go to Empire Strikes Back. I know it's an unfair play to some people. They're like, oh, you're going nuclear on your argument. But it is, okay. The one time that I recall where the bad guys really got ahead of experienced combat people, right? Because like they were ready for the Hoth battle even though they were outnumbered. They had the shields up. They had the probes checking. They
knew they were going to have to run.
They knew they were going to have to run. They weren't like waiting, going, well, maybe that probe droid was just trying to repair cable lines. Like they knew something was up, right? The one time they really get they really don't put it together in time is Han on Cloud City, and that's because Lando is his friend. Like he knows, and so maybe in that respect, the clones. I'm going to give this show a pass. I'm going to give it a chance.
No, you don't have to.
No, it's fine. What I mean by that is I'm going to give this plot of this episode a mulligan or whatever by saying maybe their Lando was the clone facility, the Kaminoan barracks, all that kind of stuff. Maybe they couldn't fathom that anything bad, could happen here, but they did think something bad was happening because they were like, something's wrong. And I'm like, you're not running fast enough. Like you're not, And then the moment they get back and they realize things are screwy from the battle, and then they see a female version of them at the that's
at the assembly.
That's Boba Fett's age from Attack of the Clones. I'd be like, okay, we all need to have like a come to Jesus meeting. We all need to go into our room and really suss this out because I don't think I want to be here anymore. Or we need to go have a talk with the big guy, not Tarkin, because they didn't like that guy showing up at all. There's a lot here that is very indicative of what I call the prequel pattern. Darkness falls across the land, as Vincent Price said in Thriller, and no one pays attention. And then they're like, man, that's a big shadow. And then suddenly they're like, oh no, everything, So I'm hoping that the next episodes will show us a more seasoned, weathered, experienced, quicker on the tactics kind of group. I know I'm selling it like they're stupid. They're not stupid as combatants. They're great as combatants. That's the whole point. But I'm not seeing them get it together up here fast enough. I told you when we were watching it, it was like they should have shackled their sniper friend to a
tree
or a
and
bunk
left him
bed
on that planet.
Yeah, they should have gone with Saw Gerrera at that point. Like they should have done, and I know they had to go back for the girl, so I get that because Disney put the girl in there. I don't mean to overtalk this, but I'm just like, I didn't hate the show. But Filoni always does a great job. I watched it because I like the Clone Wars. I'm just seeing a pattern here. It's like poetry; it rhymes.
Do you think though? How much of this do you think was influenced by Disney? Like do you feel Kathleen had any influence, or she just gave notes and Filoni said, "I'll do it, but I'm going to have to do it my way"?
Well, definitely. Omega. I was about to call her Geode. Omega is definitely a Disney note. Has to be. And if you were to corner Dave Filoni, he'd probably be like, "No, that was my idea." It's like, way to toe the company line, buddy. Way to toe the company line.
I think he's just fighting for survival at this point.
He is, but anybody that has to tell Dave Filoni, we really need a female character in this, that's an insult to Dave Filoni because he had so many female characters throughout the Clone Wars were all unique, different, strong.
Arguably brought one of the most favored female characters of all time, Ahsoka.
But even all the other ones like Sabine, and all the other Jedi, and Ventress, and all these others that were created, while he was at Lucasfilm, and then he used them to great effect. he's the last person at Lucasfilm that should be told, you got to have a girl in this show. It's like, why don't you let him have a girl in the show when he's dang ready to have one in the show? Don't force it. Yeah, so like, would I watch the next episode? Of course I will. It's not a disaster. Like, it's not Star Wars Resistance. Like, it's not, I'm not, I can't get to the next episode on that show. But it's, but yeah, there are some prequel tropes that are creeping into this. No, they're not creeping. They literally jumped in.
They're glowing.
They jumped in from stage left, and they're like, hello! Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So what did you think of the plot? Now that I've rambled and ranted, what did you think as a Clone Wars guy of this new extension to the story?
I think it was really good. I found it very interesting because the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars, where it happens on board and Ahsoka is there and she feels it, and everything happened there. To me, that's how the prequels should have ended, right? Is that one? And I know you haven't seen the whole thing yet, but I look forward to the day you see it. He's giving us now another view. He's giving us the enlisted man's view of what's going on. And how does an enlisted man almost handle what they think was winning the war, but it really is losing the war? The clones, you got Tarkin going, we don't need clones anymore. We want enlisted men. They're much cheaper and easier, things like that. So how are they going to navigate that? I don't know. I'm usually pretty good predicting Filoni. I think we'll see Rex for sure very soon. I think we may see Ahsoka at some point. There's just a lot of places they can go from here. My biggest prediction that I will give here, I think, is, and Filoni's really good. He's good with tragedy and tugging those heartstrings. He's really good at it. I think we're going to see some things that's going to really tug at some heartstrings during this series. So, it's a dark time.
So dark. So very dark for all those New Zealanders. It's pretty dark out there. It's not a lot of hyperdrive left.
Right.
They could trick us.
I need a beer.
I'm sorry, did you say they could trick us? Nah, they could trick us through hyperdrive. Rian Johnson said so.
Oh, no. You went there.
I did.
So bad.
It's terrible.
So bad. Well, that's kind of our take on things. So hopefully next week you'll see episode 2 of this from us. I'll sit him down and we will actually watch the first official episode. Even though it came out yesterday, we'll watch next week in this one together and do this again. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this.
Yeah, I hope you guys did too. So.
And we're going to do this for several shows.
Yeah. We're going to do this for The Bad Batch. We'll be doing this for Picard.
Mandalorian.
Oh, will we?
Mandalorian.
Here we go.
So thank you guys so much. Share it with your friends. Hit the like button. Join us on Patreon. There's a lot going on there. Patreon has exploded, I would say, over the past few weeks. We really spend most of our time there. We'll respond to you as quickly as we can. That's the place to be. So,
all right. Well, we're on to episode 2 then.
Thank you guys.
See ya.